Hi, my name is James Che. I'm with Jacobs Engineering, and I'm the consultant team design manager for the North Mercer Island Interceptor and Enatai Interceptor upgrade project. This presentation is for the Enatai Neighborhood Community Meeting that we held on November 9th, 2017. I'll first start out by providing the general project objective and overall schedule. So as you can see here, this project is to increase system reliability, performance, and efficiency, and King County proposes to rehabilitate and to replace the entire pipeline system in this area to accommodate 20-year peak wastewater flows that are projected through the year 2060. We are currently at uh, the beginning of our final design phase, and we will be completing final design towards the end of 2019 with uh, construction contract procurement and construction starting in 2020 through 2023. The existing King County wastewater system for this project starts at the North Mercer Pump Station on the north side of Mercer Island. It follows local city of Mercer Island streets um, to Luther Burbank Park and ends up in Lake Washington, kind of at the south end of Luther Burbank Park. Then the pipeline is just off the shoreline of the northern part of Mercer Island in Lake Washington, and travels under the I-90 bridge, still in the water, across the East Channel, and then hugs the shoreline around the south side of the Enatai neighborhood, through the Mercer Slough, and to Sweyolocken. There is also an existing county sewer line that takes sewage from this part just on the south side of I-90, under I-90, and then connects to the existing interceptor in Lake Washington. Overall, there's about 3 miles of county pipeline that we will be either rehabilitating or replacing. So this is a high-level overview of the new project alignment. Once again, we start at North Mercer Pump Station, um, follow Southeast 22nd Place, down 78th Avenue, along Southeast 21st, I'm sorry, Southeast 24th, down 81st, then for a short stretch along North Mercer Way, and then the pipeline alignment will head down the I-90 trail, which is just on the north side of I-90, um, at a point approximately midpoint of our alignment on Mercer Island. There's a short stretch on 90th Place Southeast, and then we head back down to the I-90 trail at the end of the cul-de-sac. Keep on going along the trail. Generally follows the trail all the way to the Mercer Island boat launch. There's also an existing City of Mercer Island Lift Station 11 that we will be replacing pumps and electrical equipment, and pumping flows back up with a new pipeline up to our new interceptor at the south end of 97th. The new pipeline also crosses across the East Channel in an open cut trench on the north side of I-90, with high flows going through a new 3,000 foot long tunneled pipeline, which is about 30 inches in diameter underneath the Enatai hillside, but very deep under the hillside. The low flows will be sent to this low flow diversion pipe across the Enatai Beach Park area, and then into a rehabilitated Enatai interceptor, with all flows eventually reaching the Sweyolocken Pump Station. From this point, the King County Pump Station pumps to the east side interceptor, and ultimately all of the flows reach the south plant in Renton. So in particular, there are various work elements in Bellevue. I'll first start with the Um, just shows the last stretch of the open cut crossing of the East Channel. At this spot, we have a flow diversion where it diverts, as I mentioned, high flows to a 3,000 foot long, 30-inch diameter horizontal directional drill that will be very deep underneath several of the homes in the Enatai neighborhood. Um, there's also an open cut pipeline through the park, approximately 500 feet, lineal feet of open cut pipe across the park, where it will connect to a rehabilitated 27-inch diameter Enatai Interceptor. So the portion in green here shows the rehabilitated part of our pipeline. And once again, all of the flows will eventually reach Sweyolocken Pump Station um, at the end of the project alignment. So our presentation is going to be focused on what we're calling the Enatai Interceptor rehab or rehabilitation. And the method of construction we will be using is called cured in place pipe. So this figure just shows the existing Enatai interceptor that is once again 27 inches in diameter, and it is located primarily in the water, hugs the shoreline um, around um, the south end of the Enatai neighborhood, goes through the Mercer Slough and to Sweyolocken, that is just off the page here. So the the green dots are manhole structures that are part of this existing pipeline, and the red dots are what are called angle structures. So bends in the pipeline alignment, but with no manhole that kind of sticks up out of the water. So the CIPP, or the cured in place pipe process, there's kind of four general steps involved. The first step is just to kind of set up the construction staging areas, set up the sewer bypass that will handle the existing flows so that when this rehab work starts, the existing flows will be bypassed to the newly installed horizontal directional drill pipe, and also the grinder pumps that will be installed for the homes that are along the Enatai shoreline for this segment of the pipeline. Next step will be to install or construct access at the angle structures that I mentioned just on the previous slide. So at each of the angle structures, we will need to gain access into these structures that are buried in the lake under the lake bed, but at fairly shallow, just a few feet below the lake bed, shallow depths. Next step is then to remove the existing liner that is in the current Enatai interceptor and install a new liner. So the liner meaning there's a synthetic material epoxy liner that is uh, installed within the existing hose pipe as part of the CIPP process. And ultimately, after the liner is installed and cured in place, ultimately get a brand new pipe inside of the existing pipe. And lastly, once the liner is installed and cured, then we will remove the grinder pumps, remove the larger sewer bypass, and do final restoration of all the areas that we will uh, have impacted by construction. So as I mentioned earlier, the angle structures will require access to within the lake, and there are a few options that we are looking at, and ultimately the option selected will depend on both permit conditions and the contractor that wins the bid. But just showing you a couple of representative items. Um, the This photo on top here is a picture of uh, typical kind of cofferdam construction, where there would be sheet piling around the angle structures to provide a kind of a dry work area for the contractor to work in. that is on one end of the spectrum for potential um, um, access at these angle structures. Another option could be definitely less disruptive, less impact in the water, and that would be to just dig down to the angle structures and install a steel can that connects to the flat top of the angle structure to provide access for the contractor through the top of the steel pipe. So these are we're still at a very preliminary level of design, um, and we will be um, continuing to evaluate the best methods to provide access at these angle structures. This graphic is a general overview of the CIPP process. So as I mentioned, the liner is pulled through existing manholes or angle structures and will be pulled through and exit out at um, at the downstream or upstream manhole, depending on where the contractor starts. And this liner will be pulled in place, inflated, um, visually inspected prior to the curing process. For this particular project, we'll be using what we call a UV cure, ultraviolet cure, and the UV train or device, which is also shown at the bottom here, will be pulled through slowly to UV cure the resin that is within the liner. So at the end of this process, it's basically a brand new pipe inside of the existing hose pipe. So on the surface level, you'll see kind of um, a larger truck, kind of like a grocery style truck um, with the liner in it, and at the other hand, and a little bit less equipment. And this type of equipment will be on barges and or the I-90 trail as it goes past the Enatai shoreline and towards the Mercer Slough areas. So when the manholes are in the water, you will see barges kind of close to the manholes. And once the pipeline and the work gets towards the Mercer Slough, a lot of that work will be based off of land. The types of equipment that you will see are a video truck, a vac truck, an air compressor, a winch, and a trailer. So just kind of typical general equipment associated with this process. So because of the work in the water, there will be certain permit um, constraints that we will need to follow. Both permits from City of Bellevue Parks and also permits from in-water um, agencies that govern in-water work, like the Army Corps of Engineers. So this is just a graphic that shows City of Bellevue Parks has we've been meeting with City of Bellevue Parks for several years now since the inception of this project, and Enatai Beach Park has peak park usage, obviously during the summer months. However, the Army Corps of Engineers has a fish window that will only allow us to work uh, kind of in this concurrent season, and the fish window will govern, so we will be impacting the park at times during the fish window, which typically starts kind of towards middle of July to typically late September or mid-October. And there's also other a little bit more minor or short-term impacts or constraints like Seafair Weekend that we will try to avoid, plus obviously also tribal fishing um, that we will need to coordinate with. In terms of overall schedule for the CIPP work, the as I mentioned, the installation of the temporary grinder pumps for the homes along the Enatai shoreline will be one of the first items of work. We will then install the shoring and or access for the angle structures um, and do the work um, uh, along the Enatai homes as the first segment. We will then remove the temporary grinder pumps, restore property, and then removal of the shoring uh, that we had installed for the angle structures in the water um, for these segments along the Enatai homes. So after that is done, we will move the process downstream towards the Mercer Slough. So this kind of shows a general timeline. We anticipate construction taking at least through 2 summer seasons. There will be also some work going on during the um, non-summer months, but we anticipate starting actually with construction in 2021, likely spring of 2021, with grinder pump installation, CIPP along the homes that summer, and depending on how much work can be accomplished, we may be coming back the summer of 2022 to finish um, the stretch that's in the water. Then we will be moving downstream to the Mercer Slough area and should wrap up construction in 2022. So the next few slides will cover more detail on what the temporary sewer service will require for the homes along the Enatai shoreline. So the initial concept was to relocate the residents that will be impacted during CIPP construction. However, we have developed a better concept that allows um, the residents to stay in place instead of um, moving or temporarily relocating the residents to hotels. And that this new concept really came about because of the duration that will be needed for this work. Um, as I mentioned, the work along the Enatai shoreline for this first segment of the CIPP process could take several months, and we did not want to request residents to relocate for that long of a stretch. And therefore, this grinder pump system allows homeowners to stay in place at their homes, but it does require construction of these temporary grinder pump stations on each home that's located within the shoreline. Um, Homes that are above the homes that are along the shoreline are connected typically to the side sewer of the home that's on the water. So those homes will not require construction. It's only the homes that are along the shoreline. So therefore, as the first bullet here shows, we're installing 12 grinder stations that will serve all 25 homes in this neighborhood. The prefabricated units are about 3 feet in diameter and approximately 6 to 8 feet deep. However, please keep in mind that um, the depth will depend on where exactly this grinder pump unit is installed, because it will have to be installed where the existing side sewer is. Um, Electrical power for these grinder pumps will be provided by PSC Power, and they will be on a separate power supply to be provided by King County. So there will be no impact on your electrical bills at each individual home. The units will also be provided with a standby generator, and there will also be a bypass at Enatai Beach Park. So all sewer flow coming upstream of the start of the CIPP process will be bypassed at Enatai Beach Park up to the newly constructed Enatai HDD pipeline that I mentioned in the first part of this presentation. And once again, there will be a standby generator in case electrical power is disrupted for any reason. On the surface, there will be along the shoreline. So in addition to the grinder pump with the representative photo at the top here, on the surface, there will also be a approximate 2-inch diameter temporary pipeline that carries the sewage for these 25 homes. and there will also be a plastic electrical conduit that will provide electricity to power these grinder pump systems. This is a very conceptual layout of the grinder pump system. So the blue dots are the grinder pumps that we are anticipating will be needed for each of the 12 homes that are located along the shoreline. The red line is just a very conceptual alignment for the grinder pump pipeline that carries the sewage back to the bypass that will be set up in this location at Enatai Beach Park. The black line is the existing county sewer line where all of the sewage flows currently from both the homes and flows upstream of this area. These are just some representative photos of the grinder pump systems. So they will dig a trench to get to the side sewer. This is kind of what the grinder pump system looks like when all is said and done. You'll see kind of about a 30-inch diameter lid in the backyard, somewhat close to the shoreline, but on land. There'll also be a control panel located nearby that controls the grinder pump system. The photo above here just shows just a typical shoring system that will likely be needed to install the grinder pumps. So grinder pump care for when these are in operation are just typically very similar care as with a normal sewer system. So I'm not going to read all of this here, but just shows that you can continue to operate your shower, garbage disposal, sink, toilets, etc. Typically as to when you had normal sanitary sewer, side sewer service. But if there are any issues that arise during the grinder pump operation, King County will be responsible for maintaining the system, but obviously we would like cooperation of the homeowners to make sure the homeowners do not dump stuff down the drains that typically should not be dumped down. So last couple slides here, upcoming coordination. Many of the homes have already been contacted for rights of entry for a ground survey along the shoreline areas, and the backyards of these 12 homes, and for also getting an accurate outline of the docks that are in the water. In conjunction with this ground survey, we will also be doing an environmental habitat survey that will be required for our permits needed for this project. Before grinder pump installation is done, which as I mentioned is not till 2021, King County will be working with each homeowner to get a temporary construction easement. So the rights of entry are separate from the temporary construction easement. The rights of entry that are currently going on right now in December of 2017 are just for the surveys. The actual grinder pump installation, that will be a separate temporary construction easement that the county will work with each homeowner on in the coming months. There's also a few docks that we will need to coordinate with each homeowner on. The manholes, there's about 3 manholes along the current pipeline where we do not have access to because the docks do not provide an access hatch. So we will need to work with each homeowner to provide access to these manholes. So King County will be working with these homeowners individually. There's also ongoing City of Bellevue coordination that we have been diligently doing, especially for all the work that will be happening at Enatai Beach Park. A few more items that are coming up. We'll be doing an internal inspection of the existing pipeline. That will be happening very shortly also, either in December or January once all permits are obtained. Next summer in 2018, we will also be doing some angle structure surveys at a few of the angle structures where we are going to be digging down to the existing structures and determining the condition and as-built condition of the angle structures to help our design and construction process. And once again, overall construction will not start until 2020, which will start in the Enatai Beach Park area. And construction of the grinder pumps and CIPP process will not start until 2021. So um, our last slide here is King County's commitment to provide very transparent outreach and coordination with all of the renters and property owners in this area and throughout all of our project alignment. Um, we will provide advance notification of activities associated with our project. Our goal is to be very responsive to each request that comes in. We will definitely be in touch after a question comes in to at least confirm that we have received your question. And depending on the complexity of the question, we'll get back to each question quickly, or at least let you know, give you a time frame because it may take some time to respond depending on the complexity of the question. And we'd also love to hear your input to help us continue our design process. So, if you have any questions, please contact Christine Kramer at the number shown here or at the email. Um, Thank you very much for listening, and we welcome any comments or questions to this presentation. Thank you.